verse 30 to 17. And Prof, may I kindly ask that you read it for us?
Okay. I was having the Greek open in front of me, so let me just find an English translation quickly. Luke 24, from verse 13. Now on that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem, and talking with each other about all these things that had happened. While they were talking and discussing, Jesus himself came near and went with them, but their eyes were kept from recognizing him. And he said to them, "What are you discussing with each other while you walk along?" They stood still, looking sad. Is that far enough, Brother Foucault?
Yes, Prof.
Good. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Colleagues, let us pray. Ntata rona re ya leboha ha o re kopantshitse hoseng ha letsatsi lena wa re fa monyetla wa hore re kopane ha mmoho. Re a leboha Modimo wa rona ha o bile le rona lefifing la maoba. Ebe hoseng hona Modimo wa rona re boetse re kopane re ntse re na le bophelo. Ka ho lentswe la hao ke lena. Modimo wa rona ha le tle le re fihlele le tlo etsa mosebetsi yo le dulang le o etsa ka mehla. Hobaneng ha ona lebitso le leng, ha hona mantswe a mang a Modimo wa rona re yang ho ona ka mehla ha ise a hao. Ka ho Modimo wa rona lentswe la hao ha le ye le be le kgutle le ntse ka tshwanelo. Amen. Muruti, can I now switch off my mic, my camera? Or
Yes,
must I continue like this?
Yeah, I can switch off the camera now.
All right, thanks. We are introduced to two disciples of Jesus Christ in the passage that we just read. The two disciples whom we are referring to were not Jesus Christ's close disciples, or were not part of the 11 disciples of Jesus Christ. And therefore, one would say they were distant disciples of Jesus Christ. Luke, on this passage, only mentions one disciple by name and says nothing about the second disciple. One of the disciples' name was Clopas. For several times, I have heard preachers saying the two disciples mentioned on this narrative were Clopas and an unknown friend of his. Yes, they would say, Clopas le motswalle wa hae. But many scholars think it might have been his wife, as they both stayed together in a little village called Emmaus. So late in the evening, on the first day of the week, the two disciples decided to depart from Jerusalem and go back to Emmaus, which was 7 miles away from Jerusalem. But the disciples had hoped that on the third day, Jesus will rise from the dead. And they will be given an opportunity to see him again. But unfortunately, the third day had come and they haven't seen him. Therefore, the disciples saw it fit for them to go their separate ways, but above all, to leave Jerusalem, as they thought that the story had come to an end. And Jesus did not want them to leave Jerusalem until the fulfillment of the word. Jerusalem was a place of the Israelites' hope. Jerusalem was a place of their faith, was the birthplace of the temple. Therefore, leaving Jerusalem is like walking away from your faith or from their faith, a place of hope. And lastly, it's like walking away from the very place that could have healed their souls. Like any other disciple of Jesus Christ, the two disciples had witnessed the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. And therefore they became witnesses of the passion of Jesus Christ. This experience had deeply traumatized them. They had seen Jesus suffering on the cross, being dehumanized by the Roman Empire. They had witnessed his pain on the cross, saw him take his last breath, but could not do anything. The disciples had lost a king, a prophet, a savior, a leader, and a preacher. They were mourning the death of the loved one. As the two disciples were going along to Emmaus, they were talking about the events that took place in Jerusalem. What happened? They were sharing each other's experiences in the form of a narrative. They were sharing each other's stories. They were sharing each other's pain. They had spoken about how Jesus had entered Jerusalem a week ago. They touched on Jesus' trial in the middle of the night, how he was abused at the hands of the Sanhedrin Council and the Roman Empire. They talked about his crucifixion and death. They also touched on the rumors that Christ was still alive and had risen. So Jesus had appeared to them as a narrative therapist. A narrative therapist deals with a problematic dominant story that causes emotional pain. So Jesus was well aware that the two disciples had a problematic, dominating story that caused emotional pain. Therefore, he wanted to heal that deep emotional pain, even though the two disciples did not recognize him. But he still wanted to help heal that deep emotional pain. So Jesus asked them, "What are you talking about?" Jesus was initially saying to them, "Tell me your story. Share your dominating story." Brothers and sisters, it's important that we realize that the world is not as we used to know it. It's important for us to realize that we are now at level 4 of lockdown. And it's important for us to realize that we are now on the 3rd wave of Corona. And the 3rd wave have now introduced a Delta variant. And therefore, a lot of us, we are still living in fear. But it's important that we realize that we have a therapist who wants to listen to our story. So the question is, who is your therapist? Who are you telling your dominating stories to? When you're down and out, when you're sad, when you're happy, when you want to rejoice, who are you telling your stories? When you're emotionally drained, who do you talk to? When things are difficult and hard, who do you turn to? So the question is, who is your therapist? Is your therapist keeping stories confidential? like how Jesus would do. But colleagues, it's important for me just to say, we all have our dominating stories, especially in this sad time, especially now that other people have to close their shops, other people have to close malls, just because they're fearing about their lives, they're fearing the economic injustice, they're feeling the pain that other people will cause in their life by looting. So let me just say to all of us, it's important that we, as NTS family, that we make God, Jesus Christ, our therapist. Day and night, we must tell Jesus, God, our stories. Yes, we all carry multiple stories with us. At once, such as stories about relationships, marriages, professional lives, and the past mistakes, our strength, our goals. But in that, know that you have to tell God your problems, your stories. And most of all, know that you are not the problem, but the problem is the problem. Externalize, and it will be given to you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brother Fukasi, for the very powerful message this morning. I now gonna hand over to Dr. Chibalo. I hope Reverend Mabelane is with us now. Brother Gianni, can you confirm?
Moruti, what needs to be confirmed?
On your list, do we have Reverend Mabelane?
No.
Okay, let me hand over to Dr. Chibalo. Let me check Reverend Mabelane. Dr. Chibalo.
Ruth, I think while we are waiting, I did not close with a prayer, so I think maybe to ask Date Matabate to pray. Just fellow Lebalenswe.
Okay, let us pray. Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus, we come to you this morning with thanksgiving. We thank you that you have given us life. It is your grace that you show to us. As we pray today, we are mindful that not everybody was able to hear this wonderful word that was delivered by your Son. It is meant for our hearts because you do everything with your word. And this time you are encouraging us to come to you, to share our dominant stories with you, because as individuals, as a group, as a team, as families, as the country, as the world, we are going through a lot. And it is important that we remember you, that you are there for us. You said in Matthew 11:28 that those that are laden and are troubled should come to you and you shall give them rest. And we thank you that your son has delivered the message just as you empowered him to. As we are going to continue with this session, let us be reminded that if we meet troubles along the way, if we meet challenges along the way, let us be reminded once again that we can share them with you. Empower everybody who's listening. Empower everybody who's taking part. Empower your son who has delivered this sermon to continue to be a vessel through which you deliver your message to your people. We give thanks to you. We glorify your name. And we continue to ask that you be with us. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Okay, colleagues, I got the message from Reverend Mabelani. I'm struggling with poor network, but give me a few minutes as I'm changing the rooms. Dr. Shibalo, maybe you can lead us with a reflection of the message from Brother Fukasi while we are still waiting for a few minutes for Reverend Mabelani. Dr. Shibalo, can you unmute?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you very much. We want to thank God for Brother Focus for the message that he has given us. I really want to appreciate the way you approach it, and I believe all of us learned something from that. But I just want to be free and open to be maybe to allow anyone maybe with something very important that he or she has got from the message that we can just share while waiting for Reverend Mabelani. Before that, I also want us all to also realize the situation in which we are. It is a very challenging time in our country, and as we know that there's a lot of looting and violence that is going on. At least this morning, it shows that things are relaxing a bit, and we should thank God that these things are happening. I mean, that things are relaxing a bit, and I think this is something that we need to share about these things that are happening in our country, because it tells us also, it challenges us. What is that we are preaching to our communities, and what are the outcomes of the preachings? We can't say we only as the URCSA, but the whole, Barutis or preachers in South Africa. Do we preach peace or would we preach something else? I just want also us to reflect on that while waiting for you. Thank you.
I don't see any hands. Colleagues, Dr. Shibalo, our student, has requested let us engage while we're still waiting for Reverend Mabelani. Anyone want to share with us?
Okay, perfect. Okay, you can share with us, Prof.
Thank you. Just briefly, what always strikes me when I read this passage is how Jesus approached them. He doesn't, and I've said this before, excuse me, in context sessions, when we discussed this passage, he didn't come from outside of Jerusalem. He didn't come from the front. He came from behind. He sort of caught up with them. He was walking more quickly than they were. So otherwise they wouldn't say to him, don't you know all the things that have happened in the city? So obviously he's coming from the city like them. He's supposed to know what these things were. So that in counseling, we don't confront people. We don't stand in front of them face to face and expose or unmask or sometimes even humiliate or hit them with the word of God or something. The narrative counseling that Brother Fukas is talking about, you sort of walk up to people, you catch up with them from behind, and you walk with them. And then when you ask them and they stand still, looking sad, as we read in verse 17, then you're in a position to let them talk to you. But so that approach of Jesus, of slowly from behind catching up with people, rather than thinking that we need to come and save people or confront them or liberate them or something, I think that style of Jesus is very significant.
Thank you very much. Anyone with
I just want to make thanks to the house that Rev Mabelane has joined us.
Oh, okay. Can we start now?
Yes, I think so, Dr. Chibalo.
Okay. Brothers and sisters, I just want to welcome Reverend Mabelane for being available for us to be with us in this session. We have given him the topic, Preaching Under Lockdown. And I want to say to Reverend Mabelane, we welcome you. And at the same time, we want to ask you to feel very free to share what the Lord has laid in your heart under this topic. And if, say, for instance, you have prepared your PowerPoint, we would also appreciate if you can show it. If you can't show it, we also appreciate to have it. So at the end, maybe of the session, you can even send it to our administrator so that we can have these things readily available for our students when they need them. So, Reverend Mabelane, the time is yours. Can you please join us and start sharing what you have prepared for us? Thank you very much.
Morning, brothers. My apologies for late joining. I'm struggling with the network on my side. Even now, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, the network on my side, it's very, very low. It's very poor. So I just hope I'll be able to finish without it interrupting me. I was saying my apologies for joining this late. I was struggling. I had to change my router because there's a problem with the other one. But yes, thanks for the honor to the leadership of NTS for allowing us to come together in this fashion to speak of these various topics. In my case, on the use of this virtual technology during these COVID difficult times. I've prepared a PowerPoint. I'm not sure if I'm able to screen share it. I seem to be struggling here. But what I'll do is, if I'm not able to screen share it, I will forward it to Reverend Maketa, and he will know who to give it to, so it can be distributed to the various stakeholders that are part of this group. Okay, I've divided my presentation in three. Let me first try to upload. Okay, that's not going to work. Okay,
it was showing.
Sorry?
It was showing.
No, it was a it was a wrong screen. It's fine. I've prepared my presentation in three subtopics. My understanding of what Reverend Maketa briefed me on in terms of what I should share with the meeting today is how we use media technology to try and circumvent and improvise when we are not able to meet our people to share the word, to spiritually nourish their lives. I must just say on the onset, it has been a challenge for all of us. I have an extensive experience in broadcasting, but obviously a specific platform, namely television, and to some extent, limited extent, radio. But COVID, I must confess, has challenged all of us because we had to learn from scratch how to communicate effectively whilst we are not able to physically meet with our people. So I can't claim to be having all the information to share with you, but the little that from my experience, coupled obviously with my television experience over the years, I hope it will help. So the topic itself, as I say, I've subdivided it into three contexts that I believe should be of help. And if there are questions, maybe those will help me to go on that I didn't know I should also focus on. I've divided the topic into, firstly, understanding the technical importance of virtual platforms that are available to us. And secondly, understanding those different types of platforms, only you are able to deal with content, how to prepare a content that's relevant for a specific platform. That the reality is we cannot expect that what you prepare on YouTube will work for television. What you prepare for television will work on WhatsApp and all the media. We can go through the list. What you prepare for a specific platform normally wouldn't necessarily work for the next platform. So let's just go through the technicalities first. I think the common technology to us that's available to us as a church, most of us ministers, we do not have the luxury of, having all access to all the various social media that's available. The common technology that's available to us, and I'll try to focus more on that, on those. It's a WhatsApp medium, which most ministers are using currently to try and get in touch with their community or their congregants. And the second one, it's a WhatsApp video call, which enables still to do what you can do on WhatsApp, but more effectively on a video level. And also a Zoom, which has become more popular these days. It's much more friendlier. And I'll go through it a little in detail just in a while. Which most likely like Zoom friendly on other areas, especially because MS Teams is more user friendly for corporate companies than individuals. There's also what we refer to as Skype, which has been popular all along, even before COVID. But I think it has been overtaken quite a lot by the two that I've just mentioned, Zoom and MS Teams, for various reasons, obviously, because the two are more advanced for more mass gatherings or mass addresses than the previous one. YouTube, it's one of the most before COVID, popular then. The commercial world, musicians, arts, and everybody else is using it. So I can go on, the list is slightly longer, but rather than exhausting the list, I just want to come back and focus on the ones that are mostly user-friendly and available to us as a church to try and make use of in connecting to our people during COVID. Namely, WhatsApp, Zoom, MS Teams. I would like to focus on this. Obviously, if there are other mediums that social platform media that questions may arise to say, how do we work around those? We'll deal with those as questions arise. Now, the technicality of using those in being active. In Southern Synod, and I'm not going to go into detail because I don't want to talk about how different different synods are capable or not capable of using these platforms to their advantage. But in Southern Synod, we have an experience social media platforms, and I just want to pick up one of them, which I think should be sort of a part of my introduction on the importance of understanding the technical use of each one of these medium so that your message can be more effective in how you communicate to your audiences. One of the groups, which I will not necessarily mention, a ministry in Southern Synod, services on a weekly basis. And they've got more than 3,000 members, obviously, in the Synod. Not every one of them can be reached because not every one of them have got the platform, the media, the social media platform. But just it. Now, what I've observed is that a lot of good messages that some of the leaders that they choose to present, they lose sort of contact with their audiences simply because, irrespective of how powerful the message is, simply because of the use of the technology, they lose sight, they lose contact, the interest. Basically, the message becomes just lost in the technological challenges. And I'll go through those technological challenges just in a while. I'm disappointed by my let me just try something. Let's see if I can bring this one on board. Yeah, okay, Chair. It will take much of my time that you have allocated to me. Okay, so I just want to, I've allowed my video deliberately to be on because that's where I want to start. Now, if you are using Zoom, okay, firstly, let's start by saying, what is Zoom? Just like MS Team, both of them, the difference being MS Team is more user-friendly for corporate companies because in it you are able to create channels. Like if you're a, I would imagine NTS can, for instance, use MS Teams, and it will be a channel where a specific department or faculty or group of students of a specific interest are grouped together as a channel. And the administration staff, together with the principal, the admin officer, etc., are grouped in a channel called admin or academic staff. And MFTT have got its own channel. So basically, MS Teams has got that advantage. You create channels. So when you want to address a specific group or when a specific group is supposed to have a meeting, all you do is simply links to individuals. That is the advantage for it, and that's why most corporate companies use MS Teams. And obviously being supported by Microsoft Office, it comes very powerful in terms of if you use Windows especially. Now, Zoom works like MS Teams, but the user-friendliness of Zoom is that you are able to invite your guests irrespective of not having specific channels where those guests belong. In Zoom, in Microsoft Office, I mean Microsoft Teams, MS Teams, people that are not belonging to, for instance, if NTS has got an account with MS Teams, people like myself will be a guest. Every time you organize a meeting, you'll invite me as a guest. And I've got limited features on the system as your guest. You'll have to allow me to rather enable me, for instance, to screen share, to record, to do a number of things that members of the group can automatically do. Whereas in Zoom, you basically create groups on your own that you then create into groups. You can also invite people on their WhatsApp, even those that do not have an email. But just in terms of how to maximize your advantage in using the two platforms, you've got to subscribe. If you download them for free, you can use them with much limitation. Like you can't record, sorry, you can't record. You can't have more than a certain number of people. You can't have 100 people or more, etc. You can't speak for more than a certain number of hours. You are limited, basically. Whereas when it enable you to access these facilities. I personally prefer Zoom because obviously I'm not a company, I'm an individual, and I've got to use it and create groupings within the synod, within my other area of life, within the congregation, etc., etc. So you can download it for free, but as I say, you can subscribe. But I want to talk about using it technically here on your screen, on your device. Obviously, you can use this on your phone, smartphone. You can use this, etc. If your laptop or your computer doesn't have a camera or a video built in, you can basically use an external microphone, earphones. You can use an external camera, which are available. Webcams are available at computer shops. Now, the technicality that is important that I was trying to address when I spoke about my learning from some of our ministries, especially in the Southern Synod, and I'm going to take you through that. It's basically just to enable, firstly, your members. If you're a minister and you want to connect with your congregants, firstly, you've got to try and make sure that as many of your people as possible are able to use the facility. Just the ability to log in when you are sent a link, it's the first thing. People struggle to log in on their phones because they end up not having an audio. So their video comes on, but their audio does not log on. So you've got to basically practice it. I'm not going to go into here technically because we've got limited time, but you've got to practice it yourself to make sure that when somebody phones you to say, I can't log in, I've logged in, but I can't hear you, or you can't hear me, then you know, say at a certain step in the process of logging in, for instance, you'll find that you have got Wi-Fi, log in through Wi-Fi, or through using data, or using a dial-in. There are three options. Then you've got to guide them, knowing what device they are using, that they should be able to choose one of those, so they can be able to connect audio-wise and video-wise. There's quite a bit of that. But from your side as a minister, for them, it's as simple as logging in. And also when you invite them, to be sure that your members have connected or have received the link and they are ready to connect, because you can't make an assumption that they are going to connect. Whether it's a committee, whether it's a ministry, whether it's a congregation, you have got to be assured that people have received the link and they are going to connect. So Zoom gives you, both Zoom and MS Teams, they give you the ability that when you set up the link, you can then choose to say, registering is a requirement. Then everybody that receives, I saw that this morning. I did not even check it, just clicked and I was connected. So it doesn't look like people did have to register. But they could have given us, whoever the administrator set this up, could have given us the opportunity to first register. Now, the advantage of people registering is that then you can see that out of the 50 members in my congregation that have got the ability to connect on Zoom, only 10 of them have received the link and have registered. And you can follow up to try and remind people. It is just the importance of registering. When people have registered, then you make it automatic, or you can make manual that they then receive the actual link to connect. That is just the technology to enable your members to connect to your service that you're going to broadcast. But coming to you specifically in terms of how do you effectively then communicate? Now, I've put on a light in my limited space here. If you can look at my face, I've put on a light which is not as good as I wanted it to be, because I wanted it to really face my, be in the center of my face. Now, when I switch off the light, you can see the difference. I look slightly more in the dark. And depending on the room in which I sit, especially if the window is behind me, the camera sees the light from the window, and it doesn't see my skin color or my image clearly because of the light that to appear very dark. So you see people trying to communicate, broadcasting very powerful messages. But, you know, I could have switched off my video, but because I'm the one speaking, especially if you are preaching, it's important people see face, because expression from your face, your gestures, and how you basically use your body language to communicate the message. It's very important that people see your face. Of course, you can switch off your video if then the screen speaks. So lighting is the first advantage that you need to have. Even if you don't have a light in front of you like I have now, you basically should face a window. Make sure that you are facing, but the window is not behind you, so that the light comes into your face instead of from behind. The second aspect is you being effective in communicating and catching the attention of your audience. It's on your screen, how your camera, this is from the top of my screen. So there are, even on the news, you see this on television, when they interview people, and I'm gonna do this as an example to show you, you see people, you know, appearing like this. You see their forehead, you see their ceiling. You can't basically see the facial expression, which is the purpose for them to show their video. The reason is because I've pushed my screen backward so that the camera sees the top part of my head. All that a person needs to do is to pull the screen forward until the room between your head and the end of the screen is good enough for you to appear, so that your full facial appearance fills the screen. That is the use basically of the camera. Then there is the next very, very important, and this has got to do with you enabling your audience, especially if it's say it's a church council meeting, or any other meeting for that matter, and you need interaction. It's not a sermon where you are preaching and talking and nobody responds, but it's only you doing something on the screen, but it's a meeting where you are interacting. Then that's where we need to train our members, you know, and we don't have the luxury to do this, I know, but as little, as much as we can, we need to train them so that your members know how to use the facility. Because if they do know, then there are important features that as a church council, you are able to then use a facility that is called reactions. At the bottom of your screen on the far right, there is an icon called reaction. We are able to use this facility to communicate together on the screen, because you can raise your hand there, you can say, I understand, you can, basically you can show different type of reactions there. And there's a chat. The chat is used effectively to try and communicate messages that whilst people are talking on the screen, we can post messages as well to one another as a whole group, or to exclusive individuals. You can send a message only to the chairperson to be seen by the chairperson, or you can send a message to be seen by a specific individual who must. This is a very helpful tool, even when we are supposed to post motions, for instance, decisions. If somebody proposes something and we say, can you put it in writing? They can put it on the chat. Now, these are the various features that we use. And then one of the features that I find very helpful, not for services, but for meetings, is the participants. When you click on the participants, it brings on your right side, it brings the list of all members that are in the meeting rather, or in the chat service. So you are able basically to print this as a register at the end of the meeting. On Zoom and MS Team, it works slightly differently, but both of them enable you to print this attendance register. I think I've covered quite a bit of how to effectively use this, but the important thing for me, technically for us as ministers, especially when we preach, is that you really need to make sure that the people that are listening to your message, they see your face, they get your body language, they get the facial expressions. And to do that, make sure that you have got enough lighting, make sure that your screen is set up in a manner that you are able to post your face, the bigger part of your, what we call a media screen. I then want to go into the content, the message content itself. And I will use a lot of my television experience here just to share with you, colleagues, because everyone might have their own styles. I admit that what I'm sharing with you, it's not the only way to do it. But I've realized during the days of my television work that when you give a minister, a preacher, 2.5 minutes to do an epilogue, a devotion, ministers used to struggle until obviously after some training, some of them got used to it and they successfully did it. Because we are used to preaching for 40 minutes, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, minimum 20 minutes in our normal Sunday services, where you are given almost an hour or half of it, you know, to do your introduction, your exposition, your conclusion. You have all the time in the world, and we are used to it. When we are trained at theological colleges, like most of you are completing your training, put together a structure of a sermon, and your trial sermon and sermons after that, you have got more or less the same time, about half an hour on average. So when you're given 2.5 minutes or 2 minutes or even 1 minute for that matter, it becomes almost an impossible task to convey a 1 hour, 45 minutes message into a 2 minutes message. Now, I obviously, as I said, I promise I'll send this, my preparation, to Reverend Makgeta to send to the college for distribution, or directly to Reverend Maponya. But basically, when you watch adverts on television, that's who we are supposed to be. As ministers, we are supposed to be marketers. You are marketing the gospel. You're marketing the Bible. You're marketing a message that is about 66 books of the Bible. But that message needs to be, you know, marketed in 30 seconds, in 1 minute. Have you realized that if you didn't, of course, there's no advert that is a minute longer. If it is a minute longer, it's no longer called an advert, it's called an advertorial. In other words, a company is speaking about their product. It might be a minute, it might be 2 minutes. Your clientele kind of adverts. Those are not necessarily adverts, those are advertorials. Your outsurance, It's like a mini drama where they show you somebody driving their car, telling you how much they save. And, you know, it's an advertorial, but a typical advert is 30 seconds or less. And companies pay huge sums of money for that advert. 30 seconds on Generations, on a program like Generation or Uzalo or the news at 7 o'clock. A 30 seconds program would cost that company up to 50,000 rand. 30 seconds. But they've got to make sure they brought all the points, the point that by the time they finish the advert, somebody is ready to buy. If you watch the advert, Chicken Licken, for instance, those are the most powerful, some of the most powerful adverts on television. If you watch Chicken Licken, the recent one, they show you this well-known face of the actor, a South African young actor. Don't know, I can't remember his name. He is driving this old Knight Rider car. And people are watching it from the street because everybody is fascinated by the Rider car, Michael Knight. And he goes into Chicken Licken to get something to eat. And Michael Knight discovers this car is still alive. And he says, "Kid, is it you?" And whilst he's trying to communicate to the kid, to the car, and the car is responding, Mr. Nyati comes back, the actor, and he says, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Michael Nyati." And Michael Nyati with Chicken Licken in his hands, the car can read it. The car scans that food. This is Chicken Licken. And the car immediately clicks with Michael Nyati because of Chicken Licken. And it switches off from Michael Knight, the real Michael Knight. And it just says to you, this is Chicken Licken. This is how powerful we are. It doesn't matter how famous you are. The one who buys from us is the one that's powerful. Now, it's an advert that makes everybody be fascinated with Chicken Licken. They've had more of these impressive adverts. I'm just saying, when you look at an advert, unfortunately, I don't know, it's because SAB, South African breweries, have got a lot of money. Their adverts are the most powerful adverts. When they advertise something, it's quality, it's short, it's to the point, and it's powerful. What we are supposed to be doing as ministers of the word is basically make an advert that says the gospel is powerful. Now, if you struggle to make a sermon in the shortest time that you have, you may have difficulty to communicate on the virtual platforms. And I'll take them just as an example, one by one. On WhatsApp, for instance, you can write your message as long as you want because it accommodates the longest message you can post, no problem. But if you were to post the same message on an SMS for your members who do not have a congregation, for instance, more than 50% of the members don't have WhatsApp. These are elderly people who have got the old-fashioned phone that just makes calls and can receive a please call, which is an SMS. So for those members, you have got to be so punchy that so SMS, or rather letters, what you want to say to them that morning in your morning devotion, or let alone in the sermon for the Sunday. To try and analyze and state the facts and come to the conclusion. Now, there is something also that we need to be aware of. You can post your message as a video. You can record your message as a video and post it on WhatsApp. But certain phone devices, so to speak, phone types, they can only take a 1.5 minute video. They can't take more than 90 seconds video. So you've got to bring your message within 90 seconds to make sure that the message that in pages must be summarized as you speak about the message, or you speak the message to camera and you post it as a video message. You can only do it for 90 seconds. But the same message, you can do it as a 10 minutes message if you are able to downgrade its quality on screen here. But you have got to choose the various qualities of your video such that it is lower, you can then send more a longer message. But if it is the highest quality that you have recorded, you can only post 90 seconds. You need to be aware of all this so that then when you try to record, you know what limit you have. You can do as long as you want a message and post it on YouTube, because on YouTube, you basically have got more sort of space to speak longer than you can do like on WhatsApp, the 90 seconds that I spoke about. So these various platforms enable you to then know how much to expand in your content. But just coming back to the issue of the content itself, how do you then improvise and ensure that a content that could last for 45 minutes is congested into 2 minutes? I've seen this, as I said, on several times where we try to help a minister who brought his sermon that spends 15 minutes and he struggles to do it within 5 minutes, let alone in 2 minutes. The possibilities of you doing that is sit down and do your message as fully as you want it to be, and then take a highlight in its key points that you actually want to highlight in the message. And having isolated those key points through a message in a manner that you only address the key points, and finally come to a point where you are able to contain the message, the key point, or rather the core of the message, within the limited time that you were able, you have the time to do it. Now, it is also helpful that when you do that, depending on really whether you're using a laptop, a phone, because if you use a laptop, like I'm using a laptop now, the camera is already having a stand on the screen of my laptop. And the audio obviously is automatically to my position where I sit. If you're using a camera, you may find it helpful that you buy a camera stand. It's not expensive, it's about 200 rands or so. The camera stand enables you then to position your camera in a manner that your picture that appears on the screen, as I spoke about the importance of your video on the screen, it becomes possible to do that. Otherwise, you may find that you struggle with your camera shaking or basically placing your video in a manner that you do not prefer. And then your content also needs to be such that when you present it, it's going to have to do with whether this is a sharing, whether this is an evangelical outreach, whether this is a counseling, whether this is a motivation. You see, there are different types of sermons, and this is an area that you are experts on because you guys are masters now. You're about to complete your studies, so you have been trained on how to prepare a sermon. It's not for me to go into that. But I'm just saying the type of a message, and I'll take just two examples. If you are doing a bereavement sermon, I did quite a few of them where we are not able to meet now with our congregation and the bereaved families. Normally, under circumstances, when somebody passes away in our congregation, the council, myself, and a few members from the ward will at the house and have prayer. And after that, when toward the funeral itself, during the week, every day with luxury. We can't meet. I mean, there are infections in congregations, so we don't want people to come together. We do this virtually. So a sermon that I conduct as a bereavement sermon obviously has got the mood and the sensitivity relating to the fact that here is a family at hospital because of it or whatever the case may be. And we are assembling a virtual service at 6 o'clock in the evening for the congregation to say our condolences, and I'm delivering a message. So the tone of that message and obviously the context of that message is addressing the mood of people that have just lost their mother, their father, etc. Whereas a motivational sermon on Sunday for our normal 10 o'clock service that we conduct virtually and via WhatsApp as well for those who can. Trying to bring hope and life to our members. I preach, I mean, like all of us, I preach and there's life in me and I try to speak power and I try to speak hope and I try, so and that's why I said your facial expression and your video, or if you use a virtual service, a virtual device, it's important that people connect to who you are, what you're trying to do, the emotions you try to convey. If they do not get that, the alternative should be because you have shut down your video, you are sharing a PowerPoint or whatever slides so that those speak for themselves. It's a teaching, it's something that people need facts on, and you are taking them through a slideshow by sharing the screen. So the content, therefore, will dictate the style that I'm going to use in my virtual message, to the point that my people or the people that I'm trying to reach out are able to connect to me and they do not lose interest and they can follow every aspect of the points that I'm trying to convey. I just want to then hone on to the conclusion. I think I've here, and maybe I should allow a few comments because I cannot. The issue of the technicality of the message in terms of the time, the duration that you have, the technicalities of just the ability to use the facility, the technicality from the side of your audience able to connect with you, to link, to register, to use the gestures, to use the chat box, etc. The ability to essentially make sure that you can even play a video song for your audience, especially if it's a chat service, to play a video song for a sing-along, if it's a hymn that they are used to, or just to inspire them if it's a beautiful video to encourage them, etc. So all those technical abilities, I may not have covered everything, but they are critical important. And I just want to say something that I've skipped throughout, which I just noticed now on my notes here. And that is, as you continue talking and sharing, etc., the ability to record the sermon, record the meeting, etc., is very, very helpful because your members who are not able to be part of the service, when you have recorded it, you can then distribute it afterward on various platforms. You can send it as a WhatsApp, you can send it via email, you can actually post it on YouTube. I find YouTube to be extremely helpful because then it is published for nothing. You pay nothing on it, and it will be there for as long as you do not delete it, and your members can have the link to it. Now, in conclusion, colleagues, just to say, Zoom and MS Teams, and of course, WhatsApp are really very powerful to enable us to communicate with our members. I found that our members respond very, very well, and just not your members as in a congregation, but our members even to the platform of being a synod. I realized that when a sermon is posted, whether it's a WhatsApp, it was a video message posted on WhatsApp or other platforms, whether it was a Zoom where we had a ministry and we asked people to basically switch on and we had someone to share the word. The response is always overwhelming because our people are thirsty for the word, are thirsty, and as long as they can be able to connect on these facilities, on these devices, on these platforms, there's no doubt that the difference of our physical fellowship in the church building and the virtual meetings that technology enables us to have will help us to go a long, long way to be able to sustain spirituality even in these most difficult times. Personally have found connectivity with our congregation so helpful. Obviously, it's frustrating when our elderly people cannot connect to Zoom or they cannot open a video post on WhatsApp because their phone, their devices do not. But at least to the extent that you can reach out to a certain percentage of the congregation, these facilities will enable us to survive this desert of the pandemic. I think I'll here, Chair, and hear comments or take questions that can direct me to address specifics in this subject. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We really want to thank you for the way you have prepared this. You really gave us something very fruitful. And I would like to say, even though from my side, there was some little bit of breaking, but we really understood you as you were moving with us, starting maybe from showing us different virtual platforms that can be used. And then you also showed us some advantages and some disadvantages of some of these virtual systems. And then you also went on to emphasize the message content and how best we can convey it to our audience. And then you also emphasize the issue of time. And I think that's the crucial one because we as ministers are used to preach long times. But I don't want to waste much time now. I want to give our audience times to ask questions from the presentation. If you've got questions, ask them. We still got some few minutes here, and we believe that if you've got some questions, you'll be able to post them. If you've got comments, you'll be able to ask to say them. And I'm giving you that now. You can raise your hands and then or start asking your questions. Thank you very much, Ref, for the presentation. I can't see any hand here. Oh, there it is. Marco Matavate, you're welcome, brother. Come on.
Thank you very much, Rev Chibalo. And thank you very much for the presentation. Now, as I'm sitting here doing practical theology, I would always say my studies are as important as I can reach the people that I'm intending to reach. Now, you are in the Southern Synod, and you unfortunately did not mention, you said there is a ministry that is doing well with regard to social platforms and so forth. I think it is important, if it is not too much for you, to also share which ministry is that and who to contact, so that when we have things like this, maybe they can assist us. But the most important thing that I want to say, besides saying thank you for the wonderful presentation, is that are we not leaving others behind if we have this knowledge that we've just shared today? Is it not time right now that this forms part of the synodical or church meetings so that we have the same UCSA that is in the south being the same UCSA that is in the northwest, and to avoid people from the south saying, we are covered, we know what is happening, we are at this stage, whereas there are people out there that we're leaving behind. So basically what I'm saying is that if it has not been done, that I'm asking and pleading that let it form part of the meetings, church meetings, as soon as possible so that the implementation can be done elsewhere. Also, to try, just in addition to that, to try and investigate who are we leaving behind, so that if there is anybody that we're leaving behind, then we can carry them along. I think that is also part of practical theology. We need to be the same UCSA, we need to do the same things so that everybody can start enjoying all this that is happening. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do you want to respond, Rev? Or let me ask here, maybe another person maybe to ask. So maybe let's go for 1, 2, 3 questions so that when you respond to the 3 questions at the same time. Can somebody ask? There it is, Pudumo.
Thank you, Dr. Chibalo, and Shalom Saints. Thank you to Muruti Mabelane for a wonderful presentation. Mine is just a bright idea which maybe in a long run we can think about. Like, I want to concur with Brother Matabate that we also need to start thinking about those whom we can't reach. Like, we are living in a time where we are phasing out the analog TV and so on. Most of the households are using digital TVs like your DSTVs, OHD, and so on. Is there any possibility that URCSA can have a station, their own station, where we can probably have some sermons, some services whereby we can reach everyone, including the grannies who are not having devices like a cell phone to connect to the internet and so on. I think if we can have such a station that is particularly for URCSA, then it will cover everyone from Cape Town to Mpumalanga, then everyone will be included. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any other one before he responds? Muruti responds. Any other hand, please? I can't see any other hand here. Can I allow Muruti Mabelane to respond to the 2 questions? Muruti Mabelane.
Thanks, Chair. Let's start with Brother Mwako's input or question. It's very important, it's very critical, and that is actually the idea that our General Synod is looking into. You see, I wouldn't be able to necessarily say what each regional synod is doing about this, but I'll talk about the General Synod and I will give an example with Southern Synod because I know at least what's happening there. In the General Synod, and I'm not talking for Moderamen now because I'm not part of them, but I'm chairperson of the SMFA, and so I've got a lot of interaction with the Moderamen and the rest of the ministries because we are in the money office. We realize the importance of ensuring that the rest of our church throughout the country does have access to these virtual platforms or social media platforms. for purposes of not only us as a General Synod to communicate with, but also for enabling and empowering them to effectively communicate. Because if a congregation doesn't have an effective means of communication during the pandemic, let alone conducting services virtually or by WhatsApp or other social media, if congregations are not able to do this, there's no way you can hope that presbyteries will survive. And there's no way that you can hope the regional synod will be surviving, because regional synods, general synod, presbyteries survive because the congregations on the ground are surviving. So it is a concern at the general synod level, especially because as a general synod, this because we can still meet in spite of the restrictions imposed by the pandemic, the lockdowns, etc. I mean, we have had, for instance, two synodical commissions so far. General Synodical Commission. Now, the General Synodical Commission has got just about 60 members or so. And surprisingly, when we tried this in November last year, it was really a matter of a leap of faith, because we weren't sure to make it. And most of us were still learning how to use Zoom, how to get groups, how to make breakaway group rooms, how to register people, how to vote, for instance. I didn't talk to you about that. You know, you can even create a polling system on Zoom where people can vote without any inaccuracies being a risk. So we weren't sure if we'll be able to pull it through. But obviously, the various scribes of the regional synods, we came together, we put heads together, and we shared information, we taught one another, and we prepared the Moderamen, and we taught everybody, we sent guidelines to all the members. By the time we had that meeting, there were no technical glitches other than the network, you know. So it is important that the entire church, not only certain groupings are privileged to this, but that the entire church has got access to, firstly, the knowledge of to the technology, and of course the usage of it. So in the General Synod office, we have, SMFA has created an account, a Zoom account, so that any ministry of our synod, or any presbytery for that matter, any regional synod, any church council, or any congregation, Rustenburg or Orlando congregation, can make a booking through this system and have their meeting. The only thing is that church council, that regional synod, or that ministry will have to buy their own airtime. But the General Synod is taking it serious to try and make it accessible, the virtual services to be accessible to our members as far as possible. And then on the Southern Synod level, Brother Marco said, maybe I should mention, it's quite a few groups that are practicing or are using the social media for their services and meetings. On the synodical level, created, I'm the scribe of the synod and the administrator coincidentally. So we have created a WhatsApp group, actually number of WhatsApp groups. So we have got a WhatsApp group of the entire synod in terms, not ordinary members, but we gathered, our last synod was 20. So everybody that attended that synod as a delegate, the minister, the church councillor, etc. We have got a WhatsApp group of those people, just over 200 of them. So the affairs of the synod, whether we want congregations to do A, B, C, D, or whatever news we want to broadcast, we use that group. And we can easily control the group by allowing people to express condolences to somebody, a minister who has passed away. We open the group and the whole synod does communicate, sharing condolences or prayers, or we can close the interaction so that only the administrators just to avoid people posting videos and social media that doesn't belong here. Groups like the ministers, all our 80 plus minus 80 ministers, we've got a group for them, and we communicate all affairs that affect ministers, especially deaths and birthdays and whatever messages. And we post scriptures and messages encouraging one another, especially on Sunday. Where there are men, obviously, WhatsApp group. Then we have created groups for each ministry, judicial, service and witness, you name them. Then our organizations themselves have got their own WhatsApp groups. Our sisters, the CWM group, and my wife happened to be the secretary of the CWM Southern Synod. They've got their own WhatsApp group. Every Thursday, there is a sermon. Literally every Thursday, there is a sermon that one of the Mamrutis prepare and post on Facebook. And they hold their meetings, obviously, with Bestir on the WhatsApp group and the Zoom meeting. Sorry. So we have different ministries, like CYM have got their own virtual services sometimes, and they do have a powerful WhatsApp group where they post statements, the death of someone, they post sermons there, etc., their committee. So yes, it's different groupings. If you want to, your statement, Mr. Mwako, was that maybe if you are wanting to do something on your side, you might invite some of our ministries. It's plenty. You just indicate to us which area you want to focus on. We'll look at the relevant group to can share their experiences with you. And then coming to Brother Pudumo's question, the possibility of us as a church to have our own platform where we don't leave anyone out, even our elderly people can watch. Look, that is a possibility. Maybe let me just quickly say, as a general synod, it has not yet been discussed, other than the current virtual account that I say we have opened in the General Synod office for people to use. But in terms of broadcasting our messages during COVID-19, as a Southern Synod, we have been discussing the possibility of either raising funds to subscribe for a dedicated channel on DSTV, you know, like your Dumisa type of services where we can have a slot once in a while because we can't afford a daily one, it's too expensive. Or actually some of the other platforms that are not so well known. We have investigated one of them, but we didn't make progress because we were dislodged by a few things during the hard lockdown last year. But what we have decided to do so long, I'm just saying the idea is there, the wish is there, but it's still limited to devices that most of our senior people, elderly people do not have access to. Because the idea that so far has consolidated in Southern Synod, it's where we created a Facebook broadcast, a daily broadcast. So we created a Facebook gospel broadcast. It's called Southern Broadcast. And CYM is given the opportunity on a certain day, and they broadcast, and that broadcast link is sent to the WhatsApp group of the Synod for those who don't have Facebook, and people can just click the link and hear the message. Those who have got Facebook can see it live. And then CFM, which is MBB, also have got a day. CWM is given a day. The men are given a day, CMM. And the ministers normally do it on Sunday. We have slacked this broadcast during level 1 because we were back in our churches. But we are resuscitating it now that it's the 4th week that we are not going to church. So the idea of creating a broadcast is there. The limitation I was given the task myself and a few other colleagues because we were looking at the possibility of buying into a channel with one of the broadcasters, especially DSTV. But the challenge will simply be that we need to raise not less than 10,000 rands per broadcast. So that's the cheapest you can get. But yes, it is there. But unfortunately, as I say, the few means that currently we can pursue will still exclude our elderly people, because even on DSTV, it means they must be subscribed. And not every member, especially our poor households, have subscribed to DSTV. Or it could be, on Facebook, which our elderly people still don't access. So I'm just trying to outcry loud to say, unfortunately, we must work harder than we have so far. My belief is, if this were to be discussed by the regional synods and then ultimately by the General Synod, even if it's just at the General Synod Commission, the possibility of us as a church to create a channel, whether we buy an existing channel, because there are channels that are sitting waiting for somebody to use them, especially on DSTV and other platforms. But we must still work out as to how do we enable not only those who are able financially, but even our members that are not able to have smart devices, but that they can be able to watch on television and see their ministers there. We are looking into that as Southern Synod, and I'm hoping it can one day be featuring on the General Synod, because maybe as a General Synod, we may be more powerful to buy a slot. When I was still working for TV, just in conclusion, we used to give a church or an organization that has got money. They still do it, but on SABC, I see it's very limited. Now it's done by ETV and DSTV specifically. We would give a church a slot, like 30-minute slot, and they will pay something like 7,000 to 10,000 rands per episode, and their ministers will rotate. So it's a possibility. Maybe as a General Synod, that's something that can be looked at, but it's going to involve money, unfortunately. And with our congregations not meeting currently, funds are depleted, and it's just one of those challenges. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. We really benefited from your experience, and we are very much thankful. And well, I just want to say now we have now exhausted our session's time. And before maybe you depart from the screen, because we are now moving towards the coffee time, I just wanted the chair just to say some few words to appreciate what you have given to us before we move to the coffee time. Chair, can you please come in and thank our presenter? Is our chair on still with us here, or maybe took a break? I don't know. In that case, if we can't see our chair, then I will simply say, when we are about to go to the coffee break should have started at 10:15 to 10:30, but now the time is now 10:30. But I think you can still have about 5 minutes break, because we started late. So we can take a coffee break. Thereafter, we shall move to session 2, which is going to be presented by Reverend MS Maponya. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks.
Brother Tibalo, sorry, I just had a call from Raymond Mageta saying he's unable to speak, to unmute himself. I didn't hear what you did. You express a word of thanks to?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yes. Yeah.
He
Please.
just apologizes. He tried his best, but he couldn't get his voice to be heard. Right. I have to chair the next session. So then 10:45 in 13 minutes time, we'll start our next session. Please don't go out of Zoom. Please don't stay on, so that we don't have to admit people all over again when we start at 11:45 at 10:45. Thank you.
Okay, now in that sense, we want to thank you, Reverend Mawelane, again for preparing this presentation for us. Again, we shall remind you to send it to our administrator. Enjoy your day. Thank you very much. We're taking a coffee break now.
Dr. Shibalo.
Hello?
Oh,
Dr.
okay.
Shibalo.
Okay.
Yo,
What?
I don't know what was happening with my device here. I tried to check all the buttons. I couldn't find anything here. But I followed, and I hear when you asked me to thank Reverend Mabelane, but
Yes,
thank you very
yes.
much, because you did already thank him.
But you can still say
And
it.
also you can indicate to him that he can stay if you want to stay, maybe to join some discussions. But if you
Yeah.
want to go, also it's still okay.
Okay. Thanks.
Hello?
We appreciate these words. Yeah.
Hello, I was recording the session, so I just need the file to convert. If I don't end this meeting, it's gonna record for the whole day, and then it's gonna be a big file. So in order to have bite-sized files, I'm gonna end this meeting, and then we can rejoin. Let's try and join 5 minutes earlier.
Okay, we are joining at 10:45, yes, as Professor Kritska has indicated. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Can I